What's up guys, I'm Dave Klein, and welcome to my Dark Souls 3 lore series. Today we're going to take a look at a king who would betray his own kin in order to follow his beliefs, and someone who would disgrace his own family name, the Nameless King. Long ago, far before the events of Dark Souls 3, and even before the Age of Gods, was the Age of Ancients. It was a time of towering stone arch trees, great crags, and everlasting stone dragons. These dragons seemed to watch over the land, a land lacking in any sort of disparity. That was, at least, until the first flame erupted. With the flame came Lord Souls, giving power to a group of lords who decided it was time for a change. One of these lords being Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight.
With the strength of lords, they challenged the dragons. Gwyn's mighty bolts peeled apart their stone scales.
Gwyn enlisted the help of his loyal knights, all for the purpose of defeating the dragons. Knights such as Dragon Slayer Ornstein and Hawkeye Goth, who shot down dragons with his massive bow. These warriors and more were trained to take down the dragons at all costs.
Dragon slaying, knighthood's highest calling.
And the dragons were no more.
And thus began the Age of Fire. The various lords took their dominion of the land, with Gwyn becoming the lord over Anor Londo. He became known and worshipped as a god, with his uncle, Allfather Lloyd, becoming deeply entrenched in the Way of White, with Gwyn meaning white, or blessed in Welsh. The head bishop of the Way of White was an apostle to Allfather Lloyd, and Allfather Lloyd is depicted on the golden coins of Dark Souls 1 with a white halo, which would be similar to the white circlets of the Way of White. The people of Thorlund followed the Way of White, and Gwyn helped found New Londo, a human city where he recognized the foresight of 4 great leaders of New Londo and granted them their ranks. His lordship and dominion was established, and all of this stemming from defeating the dragons, with his cathedral in Anor Londo even containing a trophy case of deceased dragon heads. Gwyn had 3 known children. His youngest and often forgotten son, Gwyndolin, who would eventually take up the mantle of protecting his city and legacy. His daughter, Guinevere, beloved by all, who would eventually leave Anor Londo along with many other deities and later became wife to flame god Flan. And his firstborn, a god of war who inherited the sunlight but whose foolishness led to a loss of the annals and rescinding of his deific status. Today, even his name is not known. In viewing the various statues around the Anor Londo, we can find statues of Gwyn himself, as he was the lord of the realm. And in his cathedral, we find statues of Gwyn, Guinevere, and a destroyed and missing statue of his firstborn. The Warriors of Sunlight Covenant of Dark Souls 1 are directly linked to Gwyn's firstborn, as joining the Covenant will eventually grant you Great Sunlight Spear, the weapon of the God of War who inherited the sunlight of Lord Gwyn, but had respect only for arms and nothing else. Yet, in spite of having his own Sunlight Covenant, his very statue linking him to his covenant has been completely destroyed. All remnants of Gwyn's firstborn have been wiped clean, despite him being the chosen child who inherited Gwyn's sunlight. But what could cause Gwyn to disavow his very own? The very same lord who had linked the fire to continue his legacy and the reign of his children. What could his child possibly do to invoke his wrath so much so that his very name would be stripped from the annals of history?
The dragons shall never be forgotten. We knights fought valiantly, but for every one of them, we lost 70 of our own. Exhilaration, pride, hatred, rage. The dragons teased out our dearest emotions.
What if your child was to join with your very own sworn enemy? That same enemy who slayed countless followers and friends, and that same enemy whose defeat allowed the very reign you enjoy. The Nameless King was once a dragon-slaying god of war before he sacrificed everything to ally himself with the ancient dragons. Dark Souls 3 describes Gwyn's firstborn as he who inherited the light of Gwyn, the First Lord. The son's firstborn was once a god of war until he was stripped of his stature as punishment for his foolishness. No wonder his very name has slipped from the annals of history. And being that the Nameless King was once a dragon-slaying god of war, it's a pretty clear connection. Not only this, but the Nameless King's entire armor set resembles Gwyn's. His golden crown, buried amidst long strands of bristling ash, is said to closely resemble that of the First Lord. And his golden bracelets, together with the golden breastplate and crown, are also said to closely resemble those of the First Lord. Yet another connection lies in this Dragon Slayer's sword spear, a dragon-hunting weapon from the Age of Gods. Its owner was the Nameless King and deific hunter of dragons. The sword spear is imbued with lightning, of which he was the heir. And, once again, Gwyn's firstborn was a god of war who inherited the sunlight, connecting the two. So the real question remains, why did the Nameless King betray his own family and kin to fight for the dragons? Like Gwyn, he was once a slayer of dragons, but the former king and war god tamed a storm drake on which he led a lifetime of battle. This miracle, lightning storm, is likely a tale of their bond. At this point, it becomes conjecture about what exactly happened. Perhaps the Nameless King, in battling the dragons, decided to see if he could mount one, and in doing so, shifted his opinion of dragons as he became more friendly with the Storm Drake. Perhaps he had already changed his mind before deciding to tame the Storm Drake, and set out with the intention of taming and befriending the dragons. Either way, the Nameless King, ally of the ancient dragons, fought beside the Storm Drake in countless battles. And when the great beast fell, the king claimed his soul, as was the custom in the Age of the Gods. Having shifted sides during Gwyn's war with the dragons seems ample reason for Gwyn to strip his firstborn of all of his titles, as the Nameless King chose to fight against his very own father. Other things worth noting. After defeating the Nameless King, we can find both Dragon Slayer Ornstein's armor set and his Dragon Slayer spear. While it seemed like you killed Ornstein in Dark Souls 1, or Smough smashed him in and absorbed his powers, the Dragon Slayer set found near the Nameless King states it's golden lion armor associated with the Dragon Slayer Ornstein from the Age of Gods and imbued with the strength of lightning. In the Dragonless Age, this knight, who long guarded the ruined cathedral, left the land in search of the Nameless King. So, did Ornstein search for the Nameless King in order to destroy him, per Gwyn, or to join him? Well, Sacred Oath, a miracle found through the Nameless King's Warriors of Sunlight Covenant, tells us this is the tale of the Sun's firstborn, his faithful first knight, and the brave Dragon Slayer who served them both. It would seem Ornstein chose to serve him, and who this faithful first knight was? Well, it's possible it's Solaire from Dark Souls 1, as he's closely associated with the Warriors of Sunlight Covenant, and the old god of war still watches closely over his warriors. But the question remains, who was the Dragon Slayer Ornstein we fought in Dark Souls 1 if we now know Ornstein, who long guarded the ruined cathedral, left the land in search of the Nameless King? One possibility is that Ornstein was sent back to the cathedral by the Nameless King in order to prevent the chosen undead from Dark Souls 1 from succeeding in their mission of meeting Guinevere and thereby linking the flame. Although, Smough's Great Hammer in Dark Souls 3 tells us Smough was the last knight to remain at his post guarding the ruined cathedral. So that conjecture could be off. Another possibility being that Gwyndolin created several illusions in Dark Souls 1, from the Guinevere who speaks with the chosen undead to the very sun and light of Anor Londo itself. So Dragon Slayer Ornstein could be just another of Gwyndolin's illusions. And finally, there's the possibilities of alternate timelines in the Souls games, as Solaire tells players time is convoluted and warriors phase in and out. This could lead to the possibility that in one timeline, the Chosen Undead found Ornstein before he left for the Nameless King, while in another instance, the Chosen Undead arrived after Ornstein had left, allowing him to reach the Archdragon Peak and die in the Nameless King's service. I don't think there's currently a set answer to this, so whichever answer you believe is definitely a possibility. Personally, I currently like to believe this makes Ornstein of Dark Souls 1 an illusion, but I still flip-flop on my opinion even as I'm writing this video, and as far as I can tell, there's really no set answer. One final thing worth mentioning is that the Archdragon Peak seems to be completely run by the Nameless King. There are statues of him lining the shrine, and once the bell is rung to summon him, the Path of the Dragon gesture is worthless in getting many of the items you can get by worshipping the dragons who exist there. It seems to me, the Nameless King created a haven away from Anor Londo where he could help the dragon's offspring thrive. As we find a collapsed mountain-sized dragon in the distance, it's likely all that now exist are less powerful drakes and wyverns, as well as the serpent men, with serpents being a snake that could have been, but never was a dragon. Alright guys, that wraps up my video on the Nameless King. I hope you enjoyed, and definitely let me know your thoughts on Ornstein in the comments below. Also, other creators have begun uploading videos on the Nameless King, and I'd suggest supporting them and checking those out as well, for their insights and a different take. If you did enjoy my video, you might like my Dark Souls 3 lore videos, or can always catch up with my Dark Souls 1 lore series. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Once you reach the Banland levels, you'll realize a key feature of Rayman is that this game does anything but hold your hand. After playing 2 hours of an early build of Demon's Souls, Shuei Yoshida, Sony Computer Entertainment's head of product development, concluded, "This is crap. This is an unbelievably bad game.